Dear viewers, today's question: why do we need to know history and future? What connects them? Everything passes, but what remains? Answer: types of intelligence, with their competences and values. To fully understand the difference in the types of intelligence of the West and the East, South and North, it is necessary to follow their traces from the very beginning. And while tracing their roots, I saw an event from which everything with great probability began. Judge for yourselves, I will begin my story. This is an artistic reconstruction of historical events based on theories, facts, data. Artistic in the sense that we clearly imagine everything as a narrative. Story 1. Lepo's garden, Lepenski Vir. It was about 7,500 years ago. He was called Lepo. His face was bright, framed by a leather cap, the soft one, like the one children of monks from some future times wear. His job, his life, was to walk along the mountain ridges and look into the distance of the sea, further and even further. Something was being prepared there, on the very edge of the world. He hadn't seen what it was yet, but he felt it. For years, decades, he and his father before him had been looking at the horizon. His father had taught him to read the signs that no one else noticed: the flickering of air above the water, the unusual color of the clouds, the way birds fly before a storm. And then Lepo learned something more. He learned to connect his feelings with those barely visible signs until the sign and the feeling became one. In his village, he was an oddity. No one sees what you are talking about, Lepo, they told him. But he relied on his experience, on his eagle's gaze and falcon's speed of thought. Sometimes it took courage to call what he saw by its real name. But if he didn't call it, it would turn on him, boiling in his feelings. He had to say it. The fire in man, his feelings, is useless if not clothed in words. Words hard as stone to withstand doubt, words strong as a bear to grasp meaning, and words sweet as honey to echo with joy in those who understand them. But there were fewer and fewer of those. People lived peacefully. The enormous fertile plain next to an even larger sweet lake was a paradise on earth. They already knew how to smelt copper and how to carve spirals of life into stone. Girls in clothes embroidered with red and gold signs led the circle dance around the fire. Nothing foretold misfortune, and the people relaxed. They forgot to watch. Something is missing, Lepo felt. He looked at the horizon and thought, what is there? Is it as good everywhere as it is here? It can't be. And if it can't be, then something from there sooner or later will come. And it came. First as long, unusual rains. And then Lepo, looking at the peaks of distant mountains, noticed that they no longer shone with that icy whiteness. He knew what that meant. The rain had undermined the fortress of stone and ice. The mountains were bleeding into the valley. Suddenly there was water everywhere. And then, one morning, on the horizon, where a thin strip separated their sweet lake from that other salty sea, he saw something new. It was a flash, as if someone had lit 1,000 fires on the water, as if the sun was flowing. Lepo knew this was bad. If salt water penetrates fresh water, the fish will die. The drinking water will become poison. Life will become death. The image flashed behind his eyes, vivid and complete. Hundreds of details he had collected over the years came together into a vision of the mind as in a mirror. That's why he was a scout. Faster to the village, he was greeted by songs and laughter. He went straight to the elder's house. The elder had just returned from the hunt. His face flushed, satisfied. The supplies were full, the young man strong. The winter would be easy. The meat would dry, and there were as many fish in the sweet water as one could want. Again, he, with his worry, the elder thought, looking at Lepo's serious face. He should get married. That will calm him down. Lepo told him about the flash on the horizon. Maybe just a reflection of the sun, the elder said, almost angry. What could be there at all? Still, he agreed to call it council, for the night was a full moon. A few days of waiting, and waiting was poison. Lepo trusted only one person, his mother. That evening he told her everything. She listened carefully, without blinking. She always smiled at her son. He had that strength of a gentle gaze, almost like a woman. But she knew that behind that gentleness lay the deepest heart. If a man is like a head of onion, most people stay on the outer layers. Lepo, it seemed, was born to look straight into the core, into the heart, from which everything grows. As he spoke, his mother searched her own inner feeling for confirmation. The inner mind, Lepo inherited it from her. She knew it was a rare mind which condemned him to silence, because people did not go so far in their thoughts. She remembered her father's stories. As a child, he took her in a boat and taught her how in his youth he sailed against the current, up the great Danube, up there where huge pines grow. He taught her about people who pulled their flat-bottomed boats, pulled them with hemp ropes up the river towards the mountains. Lepo watched his mother. He felt her feelings, even when she didn't speak. He knew that she felt stronger than anyone in the village. Well, maybe except Mela. Mela, the daughter of the herbalist, a girl who could feel the soul of every plant. In her gaze there was courage. She could endure the words he had to say. The solution came suddenly, like lightning. The mother understood everything and improved. That day has come, she whispered. You will go with your love, far away. They weep, the pines grow, and there you will make your garden, Lepo's garden, just so that Mel wouldn't be afraid. The mother knew her father, the herbalist. They were similar in their attention to nature. They needed to seek his blessing. If the herbalist felt something, he would ask. If not, explaining was useless. He looked at the grasses, not at the horizon. Everything happened quickly. The herbalist gave his blessing. The elder rejoiced, thinking that Lepo's worry was just love sickness. His cousin gave him a boat. The official story: Lepo is taking his bride and mother on a journey up the Danube so that his mother can see the land of her childhood dreams. And then, as they were preparing the boat, Lepo looked at the horizon again. The flash was no longer a flash. It was a white, foaming line that was spreading. And he heard a sound, a deep, dull rumble, as if the earth was splitting. "The sea!" he screamed, running through the village. "Death! We must sail!" No one was ready. Only one man stood up: Sel. The hunter of wild goats. He had seen something else. High in the mountains, he had seen how the land was becoming waterlogged, how rivers became lakes, how swamps were forming, and he had felt that something big was coming. "I'm coming too," said Sal, "but not immediately. My wife is pregnant. I must first take them to safety into the mountains. Maybe we'll meet up there by the great river." They embraced like brothers. One looked at the sea, the other at the mountains. But both saw more than the others. When the great wave came, it was salty. The sweet lake became black, turbid and stinking of dead fish and sealed from the sea. Their paradise was destroyed. Their home remained only in walls and in the heart. After the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago, the sea level rose by over 100 meters. It was like a giant waterfall, 200 times stronger than Niagara. The water rushed from the level of the Mediterranean Sea into the lower depression of the Sweet Sea, which became salty and black from dead fish, and now we know it as the Black Sea. Those who survived understood. Some in the chaos went east, towards the mountains of Asia. Others, those more skilled seafarers, used the newly formed passage and sailed into the Mediterranean Sea. They became Pelagians, the people of the sea, wandering from island to island, seeking a new home. And Lepo, Mele, and his mother, with a handful of those who believed them, were already rowing against the current towards the pine forest, towards the place where they would build a new home on the high bank of the Danube, a place where trapezoidal houses would face the river and carved fish-like figures would keep the memory of the lost world, a place that would be called Lepenski Vir thousands of years later. The shore of the then enormous freshwater Black Sea, which was more lake than sea, was the most fertile area of the known world. It was the Garden of Eden of Neolithic Europe. They lived a highly developed civilization. They were peaceful farmers, respected nature, had a complex symbolism, the primordial beginnings of the Vinča script, and valued the female principle. They were the first original intuitives. But then comes the cataclysm. Around 5600 BC, the Black Sea flood. The Mediterranean Sea breaks through the Bosphorus, and the water rushes in at an unimaginable speed. Paradise turns into hell. The great exodus begins. People flee in all directions. The path to salvation was the Danube, the largest European river, the River Road, which leads from the heart of the catastrophe straight into the interior of the continent. And you know who sets off first? Not the most aggressive warriors, but the wisest and most intuitive, those who first felt the change, first understood the danger, and organized the escape. These were the carriers of knowledge, priests, craftsmen, farmers, the true backbone of civilization. Around 5500 BC, they founded the first colony of the New World. They traveled up the Danube and reached the confluence of the Tisza and Morava rivers, a fertile, strategically perfect place, far enough from the catastrophe. Then the first settlements sprang up, Lepenski Vir, and then Vinča itself. The dates match perfectly. The Vinča Turkish culture begins to flourish immediately after the Black Sea flood. This is no coincidence. Vinča did not emerge on the Danube. Vinča was brought to the Danube. It was a transplantation of a developed civilization that had to leave its ancestral home. They were the first and the best. That's why Vinča culture was so sophisticated from the very beginning. It did not develop from scratch. They brought with them knowledge of metallurgy, literacy, spirituality, and art. And they were peaceful. Their settlements had no fortifications because they were not fleeing from people, but from nature. This scenario explains many mysteries. Why is Vinča so advanced? Because it inherited an even older, destroyed civilization. Why are Serbs, Croats, and other Balkan peoples so deeply autochthonous? Because they descend from those first colonists who arrived here almost 8,000 years ago and never left. Later peoples, Celts, Romans, Eastern Slavs, only merged with these ancient layers. And that's why the Balkans are the cradle of Europe, because here, after a global catastrophe, the seed of the first great European civilization was sown again. Vinča was the Noah's Ark of culture. Those first intuitives who saved themselves most peacefully and organizedly by traveling up the Danube. They were not wild nomads, but civilized refugees who founded a new world in the Balkans. It was the beginning. Everything else, the battles of brothers, the conflicts of cognitive styles, is only a continuation of that first heroic and tragic journey up the river, far from the lost home.